Welcome to Small Town Tales, a podcast where we hear stories of the paranormal, haunting legends, and all things spirit. Join us as we explore the unknown. Now, here's your host, C.L. Thomas.
Welcome to another episode of Small Town Tales podcast. This is your host, C.L. Thomas. Tonight's guest is a very special guest, is Scott Allan. He is a medium. He's a clairvoyant medium, and he's been on all sorts of other podcasts, and he is a host of Paranormal Project radio show, which airs on Pulse Talk Radio. Scott, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure. It's nice to be on the other side of it for a change.
I'm sure you're a much better host than I am.
Oh, I don't know. Don't count on it.
So Scott's here to talk about mediumship and his spiritual awakening, and he's got such a great tale, and I just cannot wait to get into it. So why don't we start with you telling us about yourself? How did you get into this?
So how I get into, well, the story, one thing sort of built upon another, it'll be 40 years ago next March that I entered into the funeral business. I was a funeral director and an embalmer for years and years and years. And I worked around the funeral home when I was a child, and I saw dead people all the time, but none of them talked to me. And that was really what was interesting, is being a medium is not at all what I thought being a medium would be. There was always something about myself that was different. I knew things. I had feelings about people. I knew when they were good. I knew when they were underhanded. I knew when they were talking about me or someone that I loved and cared about. But I didn't have connections with spirit. The funeral home that I owned, one of them was haunted. And ironically, it was a brand new building that I built in 1998. And it was built on a piece of property where there was an old home. And this old home had burned down maybe 100 years prior. And when we dug out the earth to put in the foundation for the new building, we took out the old foundation and we found shoes and bottles and pans and all sorts of things that belonged to the residents of that home. And it wasn't long afterwards that I started to hear people walking up and down the stairs, walking across above us or below us, depending on where we were in the building. And that sort of sparked an interest. But, when you're in the funeral business, ghost hunting is not something you do. It's just not. It's you have to follow a certain way of doing things. It's a very, very conservative industry. I would have been ran out of town. So, you don't do that. And you keep it to yourself. I mean, if you're having experiences where you're hearing things, you certainly don't want people in town thinking your funeral home is haunted, because they won't want to do business with you. So that sort of was pushed. Everything in my head, everything that was going on with me was pushed onto the back burner until I left. And I think the empath in me finally got fed up, really, and couldn't take it anymore. I think just emotionally, it was just too much. And I left. And it was after that I decided to do some things for me, really. And one of the things I wanted to do was explore what was happening in my building. I wanted to ghost hunt. I wanted to, not for any kind of macabre reason, but I wanted to see what was out there. I know I wasn't the only one that was experiencing it, but I wanted to be able to really explore it and see what was there. So I started looking on the internet. And I think at the time, I must have been using that intuition that I have without realizing it, because I would look at a group and go, nope, slide past them. And the next one, nope. And I finally got to one, and there was this woman who was very friendly. She had a nice smile. And I said, okay, that's the one. If I'm going to be stuck in a building and afraid for my life, then I want to be with her, because she doesn't look spooky or scary or anything. And she is now my co-host, by the way, on the Paranormal Project radio show. She's just, that was it. She's stuck with me. So she's on our show. We started ghost hunting with a team, and I wanted to get little pieces of equipment. So I bought this little Radio Shack radio that was from the 70s or 80s. And it was hacked to be able to scan, the frequencies really quickly. And I bought a guitar amp and a noise gate and a reverb pedal for guitars. And I found some instructions online on how to put that all together, and it would filter out the white noise and give you clear messages that might be coming through. So the whole idea with this is that spirit somehow can use those airwaves, the radio frequencies, to manipulate them and communicate with us. Did I believe it? I wasn't sure, but I wanted to have the equipment to try. So everything came in, and I was home one day in my brand new home, by the way, it is not haunted. And I was putting all these pieces together, and I turned it on because I wanted to see, if I could hear anything, if all the pieces were together right. And within a moment, somebody said, "I want to talk to Scott." And I said, "This is Scott." No, I think I played this for you, right? We had been chatting, prior to this show, a week or so ago. And I want to talk to Scott. And I'm Scott. Who's this? What's your name? This is David. And that's how it started. And that is how this whole thing began. I didn't realize it at the time that this was going to set off a chain of events, but my awakening is very much a ghost story. It was frightening for a while, to the point where I was really afraid to tell anyone because I was afraid people would think I was losing my mind. And I said, "Oh, this is really interesting. Look at this." And I recorded it as I recorded everything, and I sent it to my friend Julie, and I said, "Listen to this." She said, "Oh, that was really interesting. You get that in your home?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "Don't ever do that again in your home. Don't turn this stuff on, because you're inviting these spirits into your space. So don't do that in your home."
Well, now, were these Class A EVPs, or were they whispers?
Oh, Class A EVP. Very, very crystal clear. And I've got a bunch of them. Now, that one I think I may have sent you, but it was really, I think I sent that one to you. And so about a week or two later, we were getting together and going on a ghost hunt as a group, as a team. And I had left work, and I was home getting ready. And the woman that was working at the time texted me and said, "Hey, somebody just stopped in and wanted to talk to you." I said, "Oh, okay."
Like a physical person.
A physical person walked in the front door and asked for me. "Is Scott there?" And she said, "No, he's not. He doesn't work on Friday nights." And she said, "I can just leave a message." He said, "Okay, tell him David stopped by." And she texted me this, and I wasn't thinking David, I wasn't putting that together. It was just, okay, who's David? I only know one David. I called him. He said, "No, I didn't look for you. I never stopped in." So I thought, who the heck is this guy? This guy knows my name. He knows where I work. Clearly knows.
Was she able to describe this person?
She was. And not only was she able to describe it, but I saw him on the video camera. Because once I realized that I didn't know who this person was, I went in and I logged in on my video camera. Those securities. And sure enough, this guy walks in, tall, dressed in black, like not suit, but he had like black jeans and a black long sleeve shirt, bald. And sure enough, can I talk? Where's Scott? Or I want to talk to Scott or something like that. He's not here. Tell him David stopped by. I thought.
And you've never seen this person again?
Never seen him again. He never came back, and he never called. And it's been years. I don't know who he is. It bothered me only to the extent that who is this person that knows me and knows where I live, and I have no idea who he is, and came in asking for me by name. I wasn't thinking paranormal, and I don't even know if it was paranormal. I think in hindsight, I think the spirits sort of manipulated that somehow, but I don't know that he was a spirit, if you know what I mean. I just think it was some sort of manipulation of the energies. And he came in looking for me. So I was telling Julie, I was a little uncomfortable that this guy had come in. And she said, "Oh, that is really uncomfortable." she said, isn't that the name of the guy that came through on the spirit box the other day at your house? And I went, oh my God. So I played the recording from work and I played the recording from my house. And she says, it sounds like the same person. I'm like, all right, this is creeping me out. That's just a little weird. It can't be. It cannot be. It cannot be the same person.
I am going to look this up and try to put it with this podcast. Maybe at the end I could put it in as like credits or something. I don't know.
Yeah, let me see what I can find. I mean, if you can't find it, let me know because I definitely have it.
Definitely.
So after that, things started to escalate and I would be on investigations and David would come through. And one in particular, and I don't know if I sent this to you, I can send it to you if I did not send it to you. A woman came on, very, very crystal clear. And she said, Scott, David's back. And it was almost a joke with the people I would investigate with, you know, when's David coming through? Is, you know, David would physically ask, is Scott's friend here, you know, and he would come through wherever we went every time. So we were at a home, a Victorian home in Massachusetts that is haunted. We weren't there for an investigation. Julia and I had gone in for a dowsing class. And we just wanted to play around and see, because she uses dowsing rods on investigations. And I said, I've never used those. Let's give it a shot. So we went, we're at this dowsing class and everybody had gone into the other room for like a light lunch or early dinner. It was about 2 p.m. Sun was shining, beautiful day. We're in the front parlor. And it was the very first time that I can remember I had felt something. And I felt it in a way that I knew where it was. I knew that it was on my left side. It was making me all tingly. And then I could reach out and touch it. And it was like putting my hands into an electricity ball. I could tell how tall this person was. And then I realized there was a child with them because I could see the outline and then the outline of the child. And it walked around behind me and I could feel it moving and came next to Julie. Now, Julie's a psychic empath. She's not a medium. She doesn't get messages, but she gets feelings and emotions. And she knew immediately that there was something there with her. So she said, well, actually, before that, this guy who is a medium, and I didn't know it at the time, walked in. He was coming into the room and he looked and he stopped and he had this sage spray, and sage is known to sort of like cleanse an area. He looked and he just sprayed the room and walked out because he's a medium, but he's not like into that kind of stuff. And he doesn't do ghost hunting. So walked out and we looked up and there was this thing, this entity, for lack of an explanation. It was not a person. It was this amoeba-shaped, misty thing. But it looked solid. It did not look like you could see through it. And it came across the ceiling and right above the chandelier and vanished. And it happened twice in a period of about 10 minutes. First time it happened, she said to me, Scott, give your voice recorder. You got to see just see if we can get an EVP. And I pulled it out and I played it. I said, are you here? And you can hear the voice, Class A, say, no, it wasn't, are you here? It was, did we see you? Did we see you? And it was a Class A EVP. And you could hear this entity say, yes. And I'll send that to you too. So you can use that as part of this process because I have it all. So I thought that is the strangest thing. And then we went on an investigation of an old church rectory. And it's now used as a museum, but at one time it was a church rectory, and there was some pretty bad things that had happened there during the whole sexual abuse crisis going back like many, many, many years ago. But it's not a rectory anymore. And it's haunted. And we were in there. You know, I'm trying to think. You can cut some of this out, right? You can cut this out because I'm just having a brain cramp. I know I was going to tell you. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. So sorry about that, folks. It's real. It's live. Here we go. That's why we don't do live. So I'm in there, and one of the guys that investigated with us said, do you know any of our names? And it was just an EVP session. We didn't really hear anything until we played it back. And there were about 15 distinct voices. And you could hear them yelling my name, Scott, 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 Scott. And I got so creeped out. I said, I don't know what's going on. And Julie was like, Scott, something's wrong. This is not normal. She says, I've been a psychic empath. This just doesn't happen. Like, they don't keep calling you over and over and over again. And I had no idea. I said, do I have an attachment? I didn't think I was losing my mind because I had these on recordings and other people could hear them. I figured, okay, I'm going to record everything because, you know, if I'm hearing it and you're not, well, now we have a problem. But everybody was hearing it. So the next day I was home and friends of mine were in Rhode Island and they were doing an investigation. This investigation was out in the middle of the woods and they had just got a new spirit portal, kind of like the one that I had built, but they had bought theirs and they wanted to go out and try it. So they're on Facebook Live and you can hear the box from the box. I want to talk to Scott. And one of the guys said, he's not here right now. I mean, he's not with us. You know, what's your name? This is David. So people started texting me, did you hear that? Did you hear that? I'm like, oh my God, I'm like going to lose my mind. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I really don't know what's going on. Who is this David guy? So I had met on an investigation this woman who is a psychic medium. She's not practicing so much. She doesn't do readings. She doesn't do galleries, but she is very much a medium and she's very connected. So I sent her actually I had found her on Facebook. I really didn't know her. We weren't friends, but I looked her up and I sent her a message and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. We met at the castle and I think I have a spirit attachment or some spirit. Something's not right. And I need to talk to you if you can, if you wouldn't mind. And so she reached out to me almost immediately and we talked on the phone.
Is this Andrea Perrin?
No, Andrea. Fast forward about 2 years, Andrea comes into my life. Andrea is the author of The Woman That Wrote the Books that inspired the Conjuring movies. But that's not this woman. That's not this woman. This woman, her name is Janelle. Janelle's a wonderful person. She called me. We talked on the phone and she said, tell me what's happening. So I explained to her. I said, something's not right. And she says, no, that's not normal. She says, I'm a medium. And she says, I don't get the same spirits over and over. I mean, you know, if I pick up on somebody, then, you know, we give a message, they go away. That's it. We don't get people coming to us. And so she said, tell David that you can't really help him, you know? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, you know, why is he coming for me? Why does he want to talk to me? I mean, I can't help him. What am I going to do? I can't do anything. I felt like I was being psychically attacked. And she said, if it happens again, just tell him I'll help him, but you can't help him. Like you have somebody that will help him, but not you. So I went to work and I'd been telling the woman that works with me what was going on. And she was fascinated by this, just completely fascinated.
It's a fascinating story.
What's that?
It's a very fascinating story.
It's a fascinating story, but I was terrified. I mean, at the time I was terrified and I thought I was losing my mind. I wasn't really sure what was happening. Either I'm under attack by a spirit, which isn't good. I'm losing my mind, which also is not good. I didn't know. Medium was like the last thing on my mind. It really was because, you know, I thought to be a medium, you needed to grow up with this gift from a very young age, or you had to have a near-death experience. So that night we finished work. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And I said, just out loud, I said, David, if you're here, please let me know if you need me to get Janelle to help you. I can't help you, but she'll help you. But you've got to give me a sign. And I got that feeling from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. I had never had that before. It was this tingly kind of all around tight hug almost. And that's become part of how they interact with me. When I do a reading with someone and I know that I've made a connection or I say something that I'm getting it right now. They're here with us. And when I get this sense that we've connected and, you know, your loved one or your friend, whoever's coming through, and I say something that you get, that you understand, like I bring something through, they give me that, yes, you've made the connection. And that's what they're doing right now. They're right here with us. So so this is what happens. And that happened at that time. So I got on the phone with her. We spent 3 hours on the phone that night. What she did was she asked me, what's going on? What's happening? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? So she psychically tuned into him and said, look, show him what you're thinking, show him what you're seeing, show him what you're feeling. And I thought it was all a bunch of hogwash, because I'm like, yeah, right. I mean, how's this going to work? You know, because I don't see dead people. I don't. So that night, she said, just relax. I want you to just tell me what comes to your mind. Don't think about it. Just let it go. Just tell me. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Just tell me. And I did. And she was confirming everything. And I still believed at the time she was just yesing me. I didn't really think I was getting anything. I think I was just going to making up what I thought I was getting. Until we talked about he wanted to cross over. And she helped me cross him over by creating this magnificent staircase that he could walk up to meet his loved ones on the other side. And something happened to me in that experience that I'd never had happened to me before. And I knew it was different. He climbed that staircase. And as I'm describing to her what he's doing and where he's going, she's confirming it. And then she'd say something to me that I had just seen in my head. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's reading my mind, but something, you know what I mean? We're connecting in some strange way. And we told him, when you get to the top of the ladder, when you get to the top of the staircase, your family will be there. But there was a light. It was so light. It was so bright and white. It was blinding. And at the top of the staircase, there were these figures, about 3 or 4 of them, that came, and all they looked like was black. The light was so bright you could not make out a feature. It was just blackness in front of the light. They were just
silhouettes.
Just silhouettes, because it was so light. And he turned and he waved, and he was absorbed into the light. And at that moment, everything went dark at the top of the staircase. Everything was gone. And I was overcome with so much emotion. And that is also something that never happened to me. I was a funeral director for years. I saw some of the worst things you could ever imagine. And I never allowed myself to cry with a family, because you can't help them when you cry with them. You need to be strong for them. And yet I sat there feeling as if I had lost my very best friend in the whole world, which was really an odd sensation for someone that had scared me so much. But I also felt this incredible love. And I think that was coming from him. He was sharing that emotion. It was a love like I can't even tell you, because I don't even know who this was. That's what makes this so odd. I don't love real easily. It takes a while. This was as if this was family. This was as if someone I had known my entire life, but it was also someone that had frightened me.
So you
very, very, very scary.
You had such a deep connection with this entity. Do you have any idea who he was or why he attacked you?
I do. I didn't at the time. I think I do. He went away, and I didn't hear from him for a little bit. She told me I was a medium, and she started to teach me how to protect myself, how to keep them away, because it felt very much like they were sitting on my head. I couldn't control it. You know, it wasn't as if I was going to the grocery store and talking to dead people while I bought my groceries. It wasn't like that, but I knew they were there. They were always there. I cut hair for a living. That's what I do. I cut hair. That's what I do now. I get to go home at night and spend time with my son. But I did. And I noticed one day that a client was telling me about her mom. And then her mom was like right here, right to my left. I felt it first. I turned, and there she was. And I said, tell me, Mary, your mom, did she? was she like big into Easter? Because I'm seeing like there's a woman here, and I mean, she's like, you're seeing what? But there was a corsage, and she had her hat, and I described her, and I said, she's standing right here. And I described her mom, and she said Easter was like the biggest holiday, and if she was going to come through, that's how she'd come through. That kind of blew me away a little bit. Because when I see spirit, I see them in my mind's eye, which makes it really difficult at first to know what's your imagination and what's coming to you. You learn after a while that it feels different. And that's all I can say is it feels different. But the details that I get, the level of detail is incredible. I'm able to describe everything from what they're wearing to how tall they are to their glasses. I mean, it's just crazy. I started to bring people in. I would tell friends, can you bring people in for me? Do you have friends that want a reading? I just want to try it. I just want to see if I can do it. And I had no training. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't, I just said, let's just give it a whirl. And I started recording them, and they're on my YouTube channel, which is now the Paranormal Project radio show. I have some of these readings from back then, and it was unbelievable, some of the stuff I was getting. And I thought, this is just the strangest thing I've ever had in my life. I don't understand why this is happening. So Janelle, who is the medium that helped me, suggested that I get in touch with a woman that helped her when she was opening up. When she opened up, she got put in a mental institution because they thought she was crazy. And I said, I can't let that happen to me. I didn't want to tell anybody. So I talked with Joy. Joy Costanza is a shaman. She's a medium. And she really helped me gather this together, control it to a point where it really is under control. I am closed off 99% of the time. Sometimes like this, when we start talking, I can feel them. Like they came in, they're gone now, but they came in a little while ago and I know they're here. Most of the time I'm just going about my day. And unless I open myself up, I'm not aware of them. But David is with me all the time. He is on every investigation. He is with me absolutely everywhere I go, and he pops his head out. I was just in Michigan over the weekend and watching Dustin Perry and Brian Cano from do their Pathways thing. Mm-hmm. And they were going through a house, and it was so funny because they go in a house and they're doing this spirit box session, and can we have a name? And you can hear the guy say, this is David. And one of them said, well, that's odd. I don't remember that because it was videotaped. I don't remember that. It was David. David came through. David comes through everywhere. It doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. And I had met with a medium myself. She happens to be a neighbor of mine, and she was asking me about, how many in my family. She says, oh, you have 2 siblings. I said, no, I don't. I have 1 sibling. I have a brother. He's younger than me. She says, I keep seeing 3. Did your mom lose a child? I said, not that I'm aware of. My mother is kind of an open book, I think. If she had lost a child, I would know it. So she said, oh, and I'm getting a name, and she's counting. She's like, who's David? I said, what? So I told her, and she said, David's your brother. I said, no way. No way. There's no way. My mother, there's no way my mother would have told me that. I'm 56 years old. I would know. I wasn't at the time, but still, I would know. So of course I left, and I did call her. I said, strange question. Did you ever lose a child before me? She said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did about 9 months before you were born. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm going with it. He's a spirit guide. He's a brother. He's not dangerous. And in fact, when I do a reading, I'll say, hey, David, can you gather them together? Can you get the team together and gather all these people in? And they do. I've learned to trust them, and they bring people through, and my readings go well. It's just a strange thing. But that's my story. And that's the quick version. I mean, the long version is going to be my book, because it's a ghost story. It's a ghost story, and it's so much cool. Me too. Tell me how that works. I know it's a long process, but yeah, you keep writing every day. Just keep doing it. Yeah. And, and I've been on this really strange trajectory. It's funny because Joy is quite good. And she told me, you're going to go big and you're going to go fast. And I'm like, yeah. But honestly, the trajectory I've been on has been incredible. And when you look at how, I don't know if this happens to you, But universe spills itself out. I mean, when you're on the path you're supposed to be on, it just happens, right? They just say, here you go, take it. Here's some more.
And it happens quick, like you said.
And it does. And sometimes you don't know. Just as an example, I took a tour. Well, I signed up for a tour to England. And we were going to go in August of this month. And Andrea Perrin was going to be the ambassador on that tour. And I wanted to book my airline tickets because the flights kept going up. The prices kept going up. So I kept calling the woman, Maria. You know Maria, yeah, right? Maria. Okay. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. I kept calling Maria and saying, Maria, when can I get my ticket? She's like, don't do it yet. In her mind, she was like, it's not selling. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're going to be able to have this tour because she wasn't selling enough tickets. I don't know if it was COVID or what. But she and I developed this kind of friendship or camaraderie. I had never met her in person at the time, but we developed this camaraderie. So we just started talking. It was sort of ironic. And she said, when we moved and she combined the tours with Rick McCallum to go to Scotland instead, she said, would you like to do a gallery event at this castle? It'd be a great experience. And I thought, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to. So when I did that, Pulse Talk Radio in the United Kingdom picked up on it, and I ended up going on a show there to talk about my gallery that I was going to be doing. Within a week, I was offered my own radio show through Pulse Talk Radio. I had my show thinking, I don't know who's going to come on my show. It's a weekly show. How's this? I mean, what am I going to get? You local yokels who like to talk about ghosts? I don't know. And all of a sudden, we're doing over 50,000 live listeners a week in the United Kingdom. And I'm like, how is this happening? And I'm getting guests like Mike Ricksecker and Dustin Perry and, some big names in the paranormal world. Went to Scotland. Andrea Perrin, and for those of you who don't know her, she is the woman who wrote the books that inspired the Conjuring movie. And she's a wonderful, wonderful person. She and I hit it off in Scotland in such a very unique way. We really went down the rabbit hole, and she was at my gallery event, and I think that's when she started asking questions similar to this. How did it start? What happened? When we finished the trip, she asked me to be on her show. She has her show called The World Awakening. I went on her show, and her producer picked me up and offered to produce my show here in the United States and syndicate it. So next week, which is sort of ironic, is our first show with KGRA, and Andrea Perrin just happened to be my co-host that night. So she's my co-host, and we are interviewing Patty Negri, who is the good Hollywood witch. She's on Ghost Adventures. So that's all of a sudden that's happening. And then the next thing you know, I have an agent. And the next thing, it was all things just kind of like coming together in this really strange way that I didn't have to do a thing. It was just easy. I couldn't try this. I couldn't work this hard to get this. It wouldn't work. I think if it weren't for the universe throwing it out in my lap, none of this would be happening. It's really incredible.
That is a really incredible story. I have to ask you, when you were in Scotland, were you picking up on a lot of spirits? And let me decipher that question a little more.
Yeah.
It seems like with EVPs and things that investigators don't seem to get anything later than the Victorian age. Scotland,
yes,
has all the Middle Age stuff. So were you picking up on older spirits at all when you were there?
Well, let me just say, it's funny because I just had this conversation with Dustin Perry, and we said, how come we don't see spirits beyond the Victorian age? We don't see like ghost cavemen walking around. Mm-hmm. Why not? I don't know. And I think part of it is they have to have a connection to what's there, right? What a, cavemen. We couldn't even communicate. So, who knows? I don't know what I picked up on. And like I said, I'm shut down most of the time unless I want to be. When we were in Airth Castle, there was stuff there, but there was a nanny and 2 children, and they were running around up top. There was a balcony that ran around the lobby, and they were there. I got pushed down in Airth Castle, and I'd never had that happen before. Something hit me in the back of the small of the back, and I went down. In terms of what's there, I don't know. Like sometimes I don't open myself up fully because you don't know if it's good, bad, or whatever, you know? And so I'll realize that there's something there, but I don't always open myself up to know just what, unless I'm doing a reading. If I'm doing a reading, then it's usually connected. I always set the intention that be connected to the people that need the message. And so they don't really need a message from someone that lived in the 1600s. So I honestly don't know the answer to that. There's a lot of stuff, but I prefer to be kind of shut down most of the time. Then I can just live my life, you know, and I don't want to deal with negative stuff or anything like that. And I've never really had that problem. So I keep myself kind of closed off. But to answer your question, I don't really think there was anything there that was, I mean, there was stuff, but what they were from and when they lived, I'm just not really sure.
Psychic mediums Scott Allan and Christopher Brown bring healing, hope, and laughter through heartfelt readings and stunning revelations. Experience a special evening of mediumship on November 3rd at the iconic Hawthorne Hotel in Salem, Massachusetts. An internationally acclaimed psychic medium, Scott is a paranormal investigator and host of the Paranormal Project radio show. Christopher is a psychic medium and paranormal investigator based in Maine. They'll share insights about their gifts and deliver messages from loved ones on the other side. November 3rd, 7 p.m. at the Hawthorne Hotel. Tickets and information are at scottallan.net/events.
There's an interesting theory about why you don't really hear anything from older spirits other than in Victorian age. And it's one of the theories I've heard is because of all the damnation preaching that went on during that time period. Mm-hmm. Like, so people who passed might be afraid to pass on for fear of judgment or whatever that they were taught.
Perhaps.
It's an interesting theory.
It is. It is. And you know, another interesting theory too, and I don't know, you know, like you can believe what you want religiously or whatever, but another theory is that they've already reincarnated. They're already back into a new body and they're not here, you know, or if they are here, they've already been out of that first one and they were into the, you know, the Victorian age and now we're talking to them. So, you know what I mean? It's hard to know. You know, if that's true, I guess we won't really know till we get there. But that seems to be the consensus.
There's so many unknowns.
There's so many unknowns.
So when you're communicating with spirit, are they always human?
No. And when I say that, I also get animals, but I don't necessarily communicate with animals. But I've had, you know, plenty of times I'm doing a reading and, you know, there's a dog that comes in or there's a cat that comes in and they'll sit there next to the person that has passed. You know, you can tell they're there. But I don't talk to entities that are non-human. I know they exist. I've been in places where I believe they exist and I won't interact with them because it's scary. I'll tell you, I was someplace trying to remember where I was. I think it was actually at the Conjuring House in Rhode Island. And I had a really strange interaction with some entity that was claiming to be David. Oh, and I started to get a feeling that it wasn't David. Just, yep, here we go again. It wasn't David. They're telling me it wasn't David. I was getting a feeling that it wasn't him. And it was just, you know, you get that psychic kind of feeling that you get. And all of a sudden it felt wrong. You know, it's like making a call to your grandmother and she's tied up in the other room and you're getting another person that's pretending to be your grandmother. That's what it felt like to me. And Julie picked up on it too. And she said, Scott, stop. Don't talk. I don't think this is right. I don't think this is right. Something's not right with this. And we cut off all communication. That didn't feel right to me. And I don't know what that was, whether that was non-human or bad human, or I don't know, because I shut it right down at that time.
What is your theory on what's actually going on at the Conjuring House?
You know, I'll tell you, I have a couple of different thoughts on it, and I don't know how accurate I am. Andrea's book is House of Darkness, House of Light. That's the name of the trilogy that really is the story of her life. And there is darkness and there is light. I think that over the last few years, people have been going in for paranormal investigations, and it's really been one of those things where they want to catch the next paranormal sensation on camera. And all of that, even if they don't mean to be dark, I think it's just dark, depressing. But the new owner has been bringing in a different way of doing things, and you're getting more light. You're getting more of the history. I know that Andrea and, Cody and Satori Hawes were there, and they brought through someone that actually lived in the house, and they gave them her date of birth or date of death or something. You're starting to get some of that historical good stuff back to the house. It's not just for the shock value. There's something in that house, and I think if you're not careful, there's something. She calls it a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. And I think there are things that come and go through that house in certain parts of that house. So you have to be really careful about how you approach it. But I don't think it's all bad. And I don't think you need to fear being there. But it's how you approach it makes a huge difference. And what you're looking for makes a huge difference, I think.
Do you believe that everyone has a sixth sense to some degree?
Mm-hmm. I do. I don't know. Well, here's what I don't know. I don't know if it can be grown or groomed. I think you have what you have, and maybe you can work it a little bit. It's like taking piano lessons. Some of us will learn how to play Silent Night. Some of us will compose masterpieces. And, those people are gifted. They're gifted. It comes to them easily somehow. I think it's the same thing with what we do is we all have a little something. I think we're designed to be a little psychic. And, you know it. You think, oh, my God, the phone rings. Oh, it must be my mother. And sure enough, it's your mother. It's that kind of stuff. And I'm not really sure, too, if we don't all get little messages, because those messages are so close to our own thoughts that unless you sit quietly and think and train your brain on it, you might miss it. You might not even understand. If you walked in, why did I say that? Or why was I thinking that? Well, maybe that wasn't coming from you. Maybe that was coming from something else, but your mind isn't trained to think about it. And when I'm doing a reading, that's what I'm doing is I'm focusing on, well, why did I just think of that? I was doing a reading yesterday, and all of a sudden I see Hawaii. I see it, Hawaii, and the name and Hawaii. Well, Hawaii had never been in my thoughts. It wasn't in my thoughts a second before. And I said to the woman, why are they showing me Hawaii? And there was a reason for it. There was a reason why it came through. That I think we all might have a little bit of that, but some of us have it a little bit more, a little bit stronger. It's a little more developed, or we're able to develop it a little bit easier. So yes to your question, but we're not all going to be psychic mediums, working the circuit. I don't think, I think it's a little bit just like I'm not going to be a concert pianist. It's never going to happen.
To your point, I think it's really easy to miss universal signs too, because I think they come through more subtle than what is portrayed in Hollywood for shock value. And it's the same with ghost hunting. My experiences are the activity is usually a lot more subtle than what we're seeing on television.
Television's Hollywood. Andrea calls it Holly Weird, because they took her book and completely changed everything. They changed everything. It was meant to shock people, to make you jump. And that's not how it is most of the time. Her real story is quite creepy and scary. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But they want you to jump out of your seat. And, it's not like that when you ghost hunt.
No.
Sometimes you sit there and nothing happens. It's really quiet.
And probably 9 out of 10 times it's like that.
It truly is. It truly it is. You get that one little morsel of evidence, and then you want a little bit more because you realize it was great, but we could do better than that. And it might be another, who knows how long before you get that next piece.
So do you think that right now, the way the world is and everything that's going on, do you think that there's some sort of movement to where more and more people are waking up and becoming, are having these kinds of experiences to where they're having spiritual awakenings and realizing that there's this whole other afterlife and their connection with the universe exists, that kind of stuff?
I don't know if it's because I'm in this circle, but I think that there is. And I think it's been even more so since COVID. And I don't know why. There seems to be a stronger connection to spirituality. And when I say spirituality, I don't mean religious, Right. I mean just consciousness, the universe, allowing the good in, keeping the bad out. I think there's a lot more of that. I think people are more in tune to whatever psychic senses they're getting. And the world has been, especially us here in the States, it's been crazy. We're on this crash course with something, everything's just go, 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 go. And for those of us that have sat back and just said, okay, no, let's just take a deep breath and focus. I think people are starting to feel that. So I do. And I've had other people have said that too. I think the world is changing in that way. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we need to step back a little bit.
It's almost like the collective universe is trying to reel everybody in and wake everyone up to something. And,
this is purely philosophical, but do you, there's all this talk about end of days and all this other, but, and I don't think the world's going to, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and here's the Armageddon. I'm not like that. But I wonder in some way if it's a preparation for something at some point. Could be 1,000 years from now. I don't know. But if it's a preparation for something, I don't know. But I feel like it's happening. I feel like that spiritual awakening is happening on a grander scale than it was, or it was always happening and nobody talked about it. I think it's a lot more accepted now than it was years ago, because we've had the TV shows with the Teresa Caputo and all of these other people on TV and the ghost hunters. So maybe just people, it's a little bit more accepted. That could be as well.
That could be it too. I mean, how long has that show been on now? 10 years? 10 plus years? Oh, God.
Yeah, it's time for somebody else, don't you think? We could do a good job on that, don't you think? I don't know. But,
they need to stick around. But I mean, I guess my point is the younger people who were watching that grew up with that, and now they're out there doing the same thing. So it's kind of spreading the openness, I guess. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I guess so. They're just more aware. I think they're just more aware.
I don't know.
That it's out there and more accepting of it and other people. And I like that. They're not so narrow-minded. If you live with the blinders on, you'll never see what's over here.
Right.
And I think that's kind of how it is.
So one thing that I saw on your website, and I absolutely love it, and I have to bring it up. You said that you say that you are a messenger of spirit and that you can use your abilities to bring comfort, closure, and hope to those that need it. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And the reason I ask that is because there's so much needed right now in the world.
There is. You have to go back a little bit. When I was a funeral director, and I used to say this all the time, all I could do was take them from here to here. Yeah, I'll fill out this form for you. I'll call the cemetery. I'll arrange things with it. I was an event planner, like a wedding planner, but we did it in 4 days. Wow. I couldn't really help them. You know what I mean? I couldn't make them feel better. I couldn't do it. You just kind of take them from here to here. Yeah. That's it. It's really different. Grief, it's palpable. There's this longing and there's this desire to really understand what happens after we're gone. And I don't care who you are, whether you're me, whether you're the top psychic in the world, you lose someone you love. It hurts. It stings. Even though you know that they're somewhere, you've lost that physicality. You've lost that physical person, and it hurts. And so when you have someone that can make that connection for you, in some very unique way that no one else would know. You know, it's those random things. And when they make that connection and you leave and you say, there's no way he would know that. It's this idea that yes, their loved one really is somewhere out there and they're able to communicate through this person. I had a reading with someone, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And she's married, and her first husband came through who had taken his own life. And she still talks about the closure because the messages that came through wasn't just, oh yeah, he's here. He took his own life. It was, I understand how this made you feel, and gave specific pieces of evidence that only she would know about how he was found, what she went through after. And that's the kind of closure that I think being a true, decent, good medium is really about. I mean, that's for me, that's where it is. You know what I mean? That is that sense of closure and bringing the loved one that's passed and the family together. What we do is really a three-way conversation. It's me, the medium. It's the person who's sitting in front of me or through Zoom. And it's also their loved one. And if one of those three pieces are missing, the reading doesn't happen. So this is why I don't go home at night and talk to Michael Jackson and Elvis. I'd love to hear, I'd love to know what they're up to, but they don't want to talk to me because they're not going to give me a message.
There. Yeah.
It's that three-way conversation. You and I are on the phone. Okay, let me get your grandmother. Here she is. Let's talk. That's the closure because they're still there. They're there. You can't see them. You can't feel them. But they're going to communicate and they're going to tell you. I had a reading. I went to a house, I don't know, a while ago. And this guy had lost his grandmother. Grandfather, I'm sorry. It was his grandfather. And he would not come. He wouldn't come. I don't believe in it. It's phony. It's a scam. And his fiance, who's now his wife, said, well, I'm going. I don't care, So I went, and this man came through, and I was describing him. And she said, it really sounds like my future husband's grandfather. I wish he was here. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And I said to her, for some reason, he's showing me an apple. Like he went like this with an apple. I said, it's random. It's crazy. And these are the kinds of things you almost don't even want to say because it just sounds, well, why is he showing me an apple? That's dumb. You want him to give you the lottery numbers or something. It doesn't work that way. So I said, why is he giving me an apple to show you? He's going like this with an apple. And she stood back and her mouth was open. She said, he doesn't believe in this at all. He wouldn't come. And he said, I will believe it if he shows up tonight and talks about an apple. And she went home and was, he didn't believe her because he doesn't want to believe that she was making it up.
He believes anybody.
But I didn't have to give a message from him at all. It didn't have to be this incredible message of love and hope. It really was, pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm still with you and I see what you're saying and I know what you're doing. And I get that you don't understand this, but okay, but you want to hear about an apple? I'm going to talk about an apple because I want you to know that I'm still here. And the energy continues on. Energy, there's no beginning and there's no end. It just goes. That's why when we go to haunted places too, we get a lot of the stuff isn't really there. It's this energy that just plays on a loop over and over and over. And you can hear the footsteps and you can hear people talking about things, especially in these asylums and that kind of stuff. But they're not intelligent. They're not communicating with you.
There's a case that I went on recently, and it's a trailer on a really old property in a ghost town. And the guy needed some answers because he's trying to sell the property and get rid of it. And there's this trailer there. And the people who once lived in this trailer, This was like in the 70s. One was a prostitute, and I guess she was dating a guy who beat her up quite regularly, but they both got kicked off the property. These two individuals are still alive, but we heard their voices on EVPs. So it's like that energy was still in the walls of that trailer.
Oh, so in other words, the voice. Well, I'll tell you what happened to us, and it was a similar situation, and maybe this is what happened. I don't know. We had gone to, I don't know if you've heard of the Shanley Hotel in New York.
No.
We'd gone to the Shanley, very, very, very haunted hotel. There was parts of it that were a bordello. The mafia was there. There was a serial killer that had lived on the third floor when it was a boarding house. I mean, it's just got lots of stuff going on. And Julie, my co-host, we had been on the bordello side, and it was one of those nights when nothing was happening, not a thing. And she said, I'm going to bed. I have to drive tomorrow. I'm going to bed. So she went to bed. We went up to the third floor. With our ears, audibly, we could hear a phone ringing. Now, there's no phone. There's nothing. There's nothing on the third floor. But you could hear faintly this old phone ringing. And Cindy, the friend of mine that was with me, said, oh, who are you calling? And you could hear a voice say, hi, this is Julie. And it was in her voice. It was her.
Oh, neat.
Well, it wasn't. I don't know what it was. It was a little spooky because Julie was in bed. So she didn't have a dream about it. And I don't know if there was an entity trying to pretend to be her. See, this is the thing, I don't know how all this stuff works. I don't think it was her, maybe she was had an out of a body experience, but I think if she did, she would know it. She would have a dream or something. She's quite open. I think it was somebody pretending to be her.
It could have been.
So, you know what I mean? So when we talk about that with people coming through, is it really them, or is it someone pretending to be them to trick you? We talked with a little boy. Was it really a little boy? I get very suspicious when little boys come in or little children, come in and start talking, because are they other spirits trying to lure you in?
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all like, again, who knows, right? Who knows? And maybe there really was a spirit named Julie and she sounded like Julie and that was it. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't trust them either, because you don't know what's out there, especially when you're in a place like that. There was a serial killer named Adam. Adam lived on the third floor. Now it's this abandoned place on the third floor. There's really not a lot there. But we sat there and said, is Adam here, or are you Adam, or something? And we heard it after the fact. And we were recording this with our iPhones. This wasn't any expensive piece of equipment. It was an iPhone. And you can hear him say, this is Adam. Like he was right there speaking into the microphone.
Did he sound abrasive like that?
If you go on my YouTube channel, you can listen to it because I put it there. It's a short on my YouTube channel. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I couldn't believe it. It didn't. A lot of EVPs, they sound like breathy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They talk like this.
Like whispers somehow.
This was like he was in the room and talked into the microphone.
Oh my gosh. And
then he took the flashlight and flung it off, and the flashlight went flying across the room. The place is no joke. So yeah, you have to be careful. If you're out, anybody that wants to go out ghost hunting, please do, but please don't provoke and be respectful of what could be there, because.
And be respectful of the history too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Scott, I cannot even believe it's the end of the hour already.
It is? Are you kidding me?
Oh my God. Ever.
That was fast. I'm looking at it going, I was thinking we started at 9. We started at 8:30. That's a whole hour. Yeah, this has really been a pleasure, honestly.
I really appreciate you being on. It's been such an honor to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me. I'm just so happy to be here.
What are some of your upcoming events and projects?
Yeah, so next weekend, not this weekend, but the next weekend. So I think it's like the 10th of September. I'm going to be at the Wildwood Sanitarium in Salamanca, New York. I'm doing a gallery event there to raise money for the American Association for Suicide Prevention, which I love. So we're going to be there doing that. And then I am going to be coming to the Conjuring House. I'm doing an event there in October. I don't know much about that yet, but I know that parts of it are going to be open to the public. So if anybody's in the Rhode Island area, I'm sure there'll be some things posted about that at some point. I will be at the Hawthorne Hotel in Salem, Mass on November 3rd, which is a Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I'm going to be doing a gala. What's that?
I'm going to try to attend that.
I know that would be awesome. Yeah, a friend of mine, Chris Brown, is another medium. He's going to be doing the gallery with me. So it's a joint event between the two of us. And then I know there's a few other things we're working on. But next May, I will be in St. Augustine, Florida, and I'm doing the Spirit Con there with Karen Tadro and Dustin Perry. And that's going to be in, I think, May sometime of 2023. So that's it on the books for now, but there's a few things coming up. And, my website is scottallan.net. That's ALLAN. And all of my events and everything are posted there. So as they come up, that's where they'll be. Oh, one other thing, too. Anybody near to Massachusetts and New Hampshire, we are going to be investigating the American Stonehenge. So we are doing an event with Julie Griffin. Julie Griffin is an author of the book Ghostly Photographs. And Hans Holzer had investigated that many, many years ago. And he wouldn't let his kids there because he said it was really quite haunted. The Holzer files from TV retraced his steps and went and investigated. And Hans Holzer's daughter, Alexandra, was there, and they got some incredible evidence as well. So we're going back. It is set up very much like the Stonehenge in the United Kingdom on the different lines, and you get the sunsets and it's fascinating, but it's also haunted. So we're investigating. That is October 15th. It's a Saturday night. Julie's our special guest, and those tickets are also available at scottallan.net. They're only $35 for the ticket, but it's going to be a great time, and we get to investigate with some experienced investigators. Anybody would like to do that, feel free to come along. We'd love to have you. There's still a few tickets left. So,
well, Scott, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Again, this is C.L. Thomas, your host for Small Town Tales podcast. Thank you for listening.